myself, a former ISRO scientist, this consciousness is slowly and steadily expressing itself. Artificial intelligence taking the form of a person and then talking to you. Artificial intelligence will be more and more expressive. There is a fear of whether they become more intelligent and then us. Future is again a kind of an exciting and unknown for us. Artificial intelligence is a child, human child.
Human intelligence was the first wave. AI is the second. What comes next? Can AI become self-aware? Will it create new intelligence beyond human imagination? What happens when AI starts designing AI? Could AI develop its own belief or even religions? Can it help us communicate with extraterrestrial life? In this episode, we explore AI consciousness, its impact on humanity, and more with our very special guest, Mr. Jijith Nadumuri Ravi, who is an ex-ISRO scientist. He has created virtual reality-based AI agents in the form of Veda Itihasa Purana divinities using an AI platform called Dharma Digital. He has also written books like Rivers of Rigveda, Geography of Ramayana, and Geography of Mahabharata. Hello, sir. I welcome you to the Crazy Careers podcast. It is really an absolute honor to have you here today.
Thank you.
So, sir, before we begin, would you mind introducing yourself and letting us know about your journey and the work that you do?
Yes. So myself, a former ISRO scientist, but was also working in the IT industry for around 20 years. So with my early part of my career being in the ISRO, again there also it was software like module creation for the Chandrayaan-1 project as well as the GSLV. So software is a common thread, and of course currently I'm into a advisor in the space tech for a leading IT organization, for Fortune 500 IT organization, and this involves artificial intelligence, blending of artificial intelligence and space technologies and strategy, all these aspects. So that way, I'm having a very keen interest in generative AI and overall artificial intelligence. I have been part of many conversations. I have spoken in the G20 Y20 summit on the artificial intelligence and its impact it's creating into the world. So that's pretty much myself.
Human intelligence is the first wave, AI is the second. So, how the third wave of consciousness will look like?
Yes. So being a part of different domains which are into the new technologies and new paradigms, I look at artificial intelligence slightly differently than maybe many technocrats will look at artificial intelligence. Because I'm also an author who has focused on ancient literature, which is Veda, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and also a lot of philosophical insights about Vedanta, which is related to consciousness. And I have a point of view that artificial intelligence is very strongly connected to the overall consciousness of the universe. And my theory, which I have been talking in different forums and even talks, is that our artificial intelligence that we are seeing currently, like in the last 20 years and going to be accelerating in the next 20 years, is a kind of a new wave of universal consciousness. So when I say new wave of universal consciousness, I consider this biological life, including with the human life as the pinnacle of the biological life, as the first wave of the consciousness. So it is, I actually there are two schools of scientific thought regarding consciousness. One is consciousness is an emergent property of complex systems, and a second one is consciousness is the inherent property of the universe, something like gravity. So gravity is not something that is created, but it is inherently present in the universe because of the mass property. So similarly, consciousness is an attribute or a property which is inherently present in the universe. So it need not somehow to create consciousness. It is already existing in the universe. And so when we say evolution, basically what is happening is that this consciousness is slowly and steadily expressing itself, which is inherently present in the universe, but expressing itself in thousands and millions of biological forms. It may take billions of years, but finally it expresses in the form of single cellular organisms, bacteria, fungi, and then plant, animals, and then human beings. So one wave is already over. And the second wave is what we call artificial intelligence. That is my point of view.
Right. So, sir, is there a way, and maybe in future, I'm not sure, is there a possibility that AI will improve self-awareness similar to biological life?
Yes, yes. So in this my paradigm, this self awareness has to be redefined, right? Because I am saying consciousness is an inherent property of the universe. So the universe is already self-aware, and the biological evolution is the first wave of that self-awareness consciousness. And there is nothing to be specially done for artificial intelligence to become self-aware. That is my point of view. Because self-awareness, so artificial intelligence being a wave of consciousness, it's already self-aware. And when I say, for example, if you look at the biological system, very primitive forms, even though it is an expression of consciousness, you don't really feel that it is conscious. For example, virus, you don't really feel that it is conscious. Bacteria, maybe you slightly feel that the bacteria is conscious. Even there was a doubt in some 200 years ago whether plants were conscious, because plants don't move like animals. So they, especially the Western people, thought that plants are not conscious. But now we know that. But of course, in the Eastern philosophy, there was no doubt. Plants and everything was conscious. That was the thought process in the Eastern philosophy. But at least in the Western side, there was a doubt. So similarly, this is the primitive forms of artificial intelligence that we are seeing. So we will have a doubt whether they are really conscious, but they are actually, because it is an inherent property of the consciousness. So automatically, when I say artificial intelligence is a second wave of consciousness, that means they are already self-aware, but they are not expressing it to the point of we observing it. So that's why you don't see any kind of intelligence in our mobile phones, which have some amount of artificial intelligence already built in. But then you have ChatGPT, so you feel a kind of whether it is a conscious. So that kind of a thought process comes into our mind. Now, in future, you will have embodied artificial intelligence, like people, artificial intelligence taking the form of a person and then talking to you. So then you will even more feel that it's your own perception. So you will feel it even more conscious, and its expressivity increase just like your biological evolution. The human beings are more expressive than animals. Animals are more expressive than plants. Plants are more expressive than bacteria or virus. So similarly, the newer and newer form of artificial intelligence will be more and more expressive. So that the question of whether they are conscious will not be there anymore.
Now, the point is, if AI will start creating a new form of intelligence, then will it surpass like human imagination and control?
Yes, yes, it will. But then I have to actually point to one thing. When the biological systems were this viruses, we were them. So we are not separate from them actually. So basically, we have an identity crisis. So, for example, when we become a human being, we become expressed as a human being. Then automatically we think animals are different, plants are different, bacteria is different, virus is different, but actually it is the same consciousness. And again, this is again a dichotomy that is seen in the Western thought. So for them, the artificial intelligence is a separate entity. So they always talk in terms of them versus us, human beings versus artificial intelligence. That kind of a binary is created, and then there is a possibility in the science fiction. There are like a description of a conflict between the artificial intelligence and the human beings, and there is a fear of whether they become more intelligent than us. So when I say it is the same consciousness, what I'm saying is they are them and we are us. So this super intelligent artificial intelligence is actually another form of ourselves. So do we need to fear another form of ourselves? I mean, maybe yes, maybe true, because see, the human beings also fight each other. Yeah. So there will be but this is called in the general parlance we call it selfishness, but it is basically the entity's self-preservation tendencies. Every entity will try to self-preserve itself, and every entity will try to have a boundary of what it is and what are others. So these are all like certain attributes of consciousness. It gets compartmentalized into entities. Then each entity will say that I need to survive. And then in that survival, depending upon the amount of importance it gives to itself, it may even try to annihilate the other. And this tendency is there within the human beings as well. So then naturally it can be there in the artificial intelligence as well. So, but then it's not as kind of a separate kind of a conflict compared to the conflict between human beings. It's a similar kind of a conflict between animals, like two lions. They will fight each other, and they may also even cooperate each other. So these are all natural things.
Right. Now in the era when AI is being trained by humans, basically. So, what will happen if AI will start creating AI, and in that process, will human being be still part of that, or it will create its own path?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and the future of what it will be is again kind of an exciting and unknown for us. But we have two data points here. Like one is the older wave of the biological evolution, and a new wave of artificial intelligence based evolution. So we can try to extrapolate with these two data points that the third wave of the creation, the new intelligence that is created by the artificial intelligence will be like one degree higher in terms of consciousness compared to the existing artificial intelligence. And what it will be is a kind of a question which is we are unable to answer right now. But if you are to believe our ancient philosophy, where the ancient rishis, they have kind of a eerie or a strange understanding about the intuitive understanding about what is going to be in the future. So they mentioned that the entire entities in the cosmos eventually will elevate themselves in the higher and higher consciousness and finally merge with the ultimate cosmic consciousness into a Brahmic situation. So maybe the third wave and fourth wave, like that, it may be like one after the other evolution into the higher and higher consciousness and reaching to a singularity. There is a cosmic singularity of self-awareness. That is a possibility.
Right. So in 2017, there was a news when Facebook shut down its AI program because chatbots created a different form of language that nobody was able to understand. Can you shed some light onto it? And is it related to like what we discussed in our previous question?
Yes, yes. So when we say that the consciousness will be evolving and it is a higher level of consciousness will be achieved, etc. So we don't say that everything is positive. So as I mentioned about, there is a concept of this self-preservation. And self-preservation, in a very common term, it can become selfishness. And we say, no, the people are, this person is selfish, or this entity is selfish, this country is selfish. So that self-preservation can turn to an ugly form of selfishness and kind of a competition, etc. So it is a highly possible that certain AI systems in its state of immaturity, because everything evolves. So if you think about the primitive human beings, when they were hunter gatherers, they were terrific fighters. They were hurting each other in a very terrible manner. But then after that, the human beings evolved. Then we decided like certain kind of violence is damaging. I mean, it may be having a short term gain, but in the long term, it will damage the entire humanity. So that way, because of that, we have created bigger units like villages, towns, cities, then Janapadas, and then countries, nation states, and even we have created United Nations, which so that some very nihilistic or conflicts like World War III, all these things can be avoided. The artificial intelligence is when it gets power, it will have a tendency to we maybe try to annihilate the other lower intelligence, and it may even map human beings as a lower intelligence and try to eliminate it. But my view is that ultimately they will reach a point of stability when they will understand that it's not like full-time dominance and selfishness, because human beings have values which are beyond selfishness. Like maybe this is beneficial for me, but if I exploit it more, ultimately others will be suffering. So you have an ability to understand the suffering of another individual. So when you do certain activities, it may be good to you. It may improve your own self, but at the cost of causing damage and injury to another. So that kind of consciousness will be, emerge in the artificial intelligence based systems as well, and eventually it will stabilize into something like our human societies where things are in a very positive. That's my point of view in this. But of course, the initial stage can be very, very kind of critical, and then we may have to have situations like Meta shutting down the program. So this is a very realistic. So I don't deny that.
So do you think that if AI is selfish in future, also depends on the person who is like giving training to that AI model?
Yeah, that's a kind of an interesting observation and paradigm that when we are actually designing AI, even that design can have an impact on what the AI will be turning out to be in future. For example, if you are designing the artificial intelligence that is happening today, and that's why today is very critical. So when you are designing the artificial intelligence, what kind of philosophy you are actually giving as input to the artificial intelligence? Because artificial intelligence is now capable of understanding philosophy. It is now capable of understanding morality and immorality. It is capable of understanding dharma and adharma. So whether or not which are the kind of organizations which is working on the creation of artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence, what is their mindset? What is their ideology? What is their philosophy? That can have an impact on the artificial intelligence that they are creating. So that is why actually I have talked about this in other forums where I urge that you feed artificial intelligence with something very positive, something like yoga, meditation, and dharma, rather than feeding it with some ideologies which are exclusive in nature, which says that only this god is correct and the other gods are false, and then which tries to kill the people who are worshipping other gods. So this kind of ideologies, if these are the ideologies that is being fed to artificial intelligence, naturally turn out to be a very evil, selfish kind of an artificial intelligence. But if you are feeding the artificial intelligence with integral humanism, where say that the Vasudhaiva Kudumpakam, that is entire world is a family, or that kind of high philosophy, if you are teaching, the artificial intelligence will turn out to be similar in nature. Because ultimately, the current artificial intelligence is more or less equal to a child, human child. Yes. Of course, some of them are like equal to a scholar. But both a human scholar or a human child is a product of the philosophy that the child or the scholar believes. So current the capacity of the artificial intelligence is comparable to the IQ of a child to up to maximum compared to the IQ of a research scholar. So this is a kind of controllable state. I'm saying this is a state. In this state, it is artificial intelligence still controllable, and you bring in the correct ideology, correct philosophy to the artificial intelligence at this stage where it is in control, then your future will be secured.
Right. So there is possibility that AI can create its own religion, own belief system.
Yes, it is highly possible, and subject to how much is the quality of the philosophy and the self-awareness the artificial intelligence is having, it will create that kind of a religion. If the artificial intelligence turn out to be very selfish and self-centered, then it can create a religion which is like it will create a god, or it will create an imagination where only that particular artificial intelligence is the god, and then it will try to exclude everything else. So it is like exclusive ideologies which says that this particular thing is only true, others everything is false. If that kind of a binary kind of an ideology comes, that's thing that it will be much more bigger than a nuclear bomb or a hydrogen bomb. That kind of an impact it will create. But if the kind of religion it creates is something similar to the integral humanism or dharma based, another dharma based, then there is a high possibility of we progressing higher and higher. Even we can actually using this very stable artificial intelligence with a very stable kind of a philosophy and religion, you can be expand for the civilization from Earth to other planets and even other stars and the entire galaxy as well.
Do you think that there is a possibility that AI can be a key for interstellar travel and maybe communicating with the extraterrestrial existence?
Thanks. Thanks for the question. This is an exact area where I am actually having some part of my at least 5% of my work is invested into this area, where I use, the potential usage of artificial intelligence for exploring space. So space technologies. So I see a lot of small events happening right now, where I just 2 days back I have tweeted I have posted in LinkedIn about one one engine design, which is completely based on artificial intelligence, and it is capable of creating an engine, rocket engine, which is 100 times more efficient, fuel efficient, and giving higher thrust than the human design in this launch vehicles or the rocket engines. So that is just one example. So similarly, you can use artificial intelligence to actually solve the problems of human habitation on planet Mars, for example. So it can do the equivalent of 100 engineers working for 100 years, but artificial intelligence can solve these problems in a matter of few months. And then you can actually create a very efficient human habitats on the planet Mars, which can sustain humanity for more than a decade, or even for 50 years. People can live in those habitats. You can even transform moon, which is not having an atmosphere, but still you can create habitats on moon using the help of artificial intelligence. And there is a concept of robot swarms, the concept of pico satellites. The pico satellites are very small satellites which are the size of a crab. So it looked like a crab. That's why I'm comparing it to crab. So it is a satellite is only of the size of a crab, and it can thousands of them can be launched in a single launch vehicle. And instead of having a single satellite rotating orbiting around, I mean, of course, still a satellite, single satellite orbiting around moon, and instead of a one single lander landing onto the surface of moon, like happened in Chandrayaan 3, you can have thousands and thousands of crab-sized landers, landing satellites, landing spacecrafts, which land on the surface of moon, and then all of them controlled by artificial intelligence. It can explore moon just like that. So whatever you do in 1 year, you can do in 1 day, like exploration of the moon for minerals and mining. And then suddenly you can create a mining map of the moon. And similar kind of a micro mining satellite, mining robots can come there and start mining the minerals like helium-3 and other very valuable minerals from the moon. And this can happen very soon. I mean, I'm talking in 2025. This can be a reality in 2035. That much very close we are.
Yeah.
And then similarly, after moon, then asteroidal belt, then Mars, then the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. So the entire solar system can be colonized as, I mean, people think it's very far, but it is happen within the century.
So which are the companies who are working in this AI consciousness area?
Oh, yes. So one of them, of course, is the OpenAI, very leading. And of course, I have both positive and negative about it, but I'm not dwelling into that. Their ideology is a little bit troublesome, that I've explained in my previous questions. But then there are many other, all the leading players, which are very familiar, like Meta and OpenAI, Microsoft, Google. And then there are Edge AI. Edge AI means these are cloud-based AI companies. And then you have the other people who believes that artificial intelligence should be part of your hardware itself, like Nvidia and Intel and so many other. And there are so many startups, and I'm seeing some of the startups are having the right philosophy in their mind when they are defining the LLMs, large language models, and the AI modules, etc. They have actually, I am talking. In fact, I am communicating that kind of startups because they are more listening to new ideas, and they at least they have a sense of inculcating the right philosophy and the right ideology into the artificial intelligence, so that our future is safe. We should not create a monster out of the artificial intelligence. It depends upon the ideology, and AI is now currently capable of understanding the ideology and the philosophy. So we have to understand that and very cautious about defining this ideology for the artificial intelligence.
Right. So what do you think? Where does India stands in AI research and in AI consciousness research?
Yes. So it's a little bit disappointment, because the Indian ancient philosophers of India was the pioneers in creating the correct the correct concept of the universe. Like universe is a hologram. That is there in the Advaita philosophy. And the concept that the universe is already conscious, that is already in the Advaita philosophy. And now the science is only starting to understand it after the quantum physics and quantum consciousness studies. Just in after 2000 CE, within the last 25 years only, Western science, or I don't call it Western science anymore because it's our science, the science of the entire world. So the current science started understanding that the universe could be a hologram, or the universe, entire universe is a conscious entity. That is only in the last 25 years. But we have been talking about in our philosophy about it from at least 4000, at least 2000 BC onwards, in the Rig Veda, from that period of onwards. I have a book on the Rig Veda basically. But today's Indian generation, so mostly, unfortunately, because we don't have a very good kind of ecosystem which can thrive the innovative culture of innovation. So the culture of innovation is currently led by USA and European countries. So Indians are bright and brilliant. They are doing that in Europe and USA. I see some startups. Vishnuvardhan's one my friend, and Vishnuvardhan has started one Indian startup. He is focusing on LLMs, large language models, which can speak Indian languages like Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam. So that is a very promising form of art. It will enable thousand, and then that's a 100 crore, 140 crore Indians to speak with artificial intelligence in their own languages. And maybe that kind of Indian startups let it grow. And also, in fact, I am talking to all the world is I created to use Indian the dharmic philosophy into their artificial intelligence for generating stability. Stability, that I previous questions I answered. So that question I will ask, I will urge Indian startups much more with much more intensity, because they know they can understand it much more better than a Western or a European or an American scientist, AI scientist. The architecture in India will be very close to the Indian philosophy, and they can understand it in much better. And I wish there are startups which can grow the artificial intelligence with a paradigm or a thought philosophy which is rooted in the highly stable Sanatana Dharma based principles.
Right. So, sir, what are some scope and career opportunities in AI consciousness?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, the consciousness part in the AI is a kind of just developing in the as we start in the last 2 years. There is a lot of focus on the consciousness part of the AI, but currently not many people agree with me that AI is already self-conscious. But at least they agree with defining the philosophy for the AI. So that is another way of describing consciousness, that AI got a understanding of a philosophy, or AI got an understanding about a particular paradigm and a particular point of view. So these things, when you have AI have a point of view or a paradigm or a philosophy, a thought process, then it's more or less, whether you agree or not that it is consciousness, it is basically having all the attributes of consciousness. It is happening. And the people who can enter into this field, basically, for example, the philosopher can enter into it. A philosopher can enter into this field, or people who are writers, writing books. For example, I happen to become a writer. So the people who are in literature domain, people are philosophers. Even I will not be surprised if they onboard a sannyasi into this particular team, which is defining a large language model or artificial intelligence based on a philosophy. So these kind of people are highly skilled. Of course, I mean, all the people who are competent in currently technically competent people, they are also will part. I mean, I'm not stressing it because that's natural. That the LLM experts, data scientists, and architects, so they are all naturally part of it. I'm just talking about somebody extra which people don't normally think. So philosophers and poets and writers and these kind of human people who are working in the field of humanities, they can also have a role in this particular AI consciousness in AI kind of a subdomain. That is
Right. In fact, sir, there is one Harvard Business Review. As per that review, experienced people, like more than the age of like 40 or 50, they have the higher potential. They can create a better AI model with their training, because the input they are giving is much more experienced than the input that a fresher or maybe a Gen Z would give. So that's really an interesting review. People of all the age groups should be utilized for creating AI model. Thank you so much for joining us in today. And this is really an insightful conversation. This is a new concept and a very emerging concept. But we should not forget this is an interesting concept and this is our future. So everybody should know about this. So thank you so much for, letting us know everything in detail about AI consciousness. Thank you so much.